Hello? Hi everyone. Hope everyone's having a good day. I am not, to be honest. Really rough day. Don't really want to get into it, but just time to stream. So we're here. If you guys were here for the first stream, you would know that I managed to be one of the guys working on the Tommy K lore for his mega campaign. I've recruited a couple of people who've been really active in the discussions in Discord into the project, so the suggestions that you guys have been offering are being integrated, and it's great, so thank you very much. So the last week I've been busy. We started with just this, like basically just a picture of what the world was. I had to stitch it together. Then turns out that we actually do have the game. My Victoria's loading right now, so I can't really show it. Hi Term, hi Altist Uncle, and hi Welshie. I think that this is the campaign. Yeah, it is. So we actually managed to get the save of the game itself, and we noticed some interesting things that are going to influence the way that we develop the game. So if you look at Tommy K start, this is the start. The Byzantine Empire was only the Balkans, but they've managed to reconquer most of everything. The only remaining Turkish nation is here in Georgia and in Constantinople itself. I didn't notice this, but somebody else did. I need to get their name quickly before I hold on. Before I spread misinformation. I think his name was, I think it was, I have streamer mode on, so I can't. It's Term09, I think, is the guy who discovered this. You see Carthage, Carthaginian Africa. If we look at the culture, yeah, Canada isn't even Canada. It's like German and like just an administrative region. It may be called Canada. This has nothing to do with our Canada. Anyway, you see there's a lot of Greeks here, right? Well, there was a crisis and it went to the Byzantine Empire, which made them only here. But then Nova Carthago, it became Neo-Italian, and even though it doesn't show it right now, it'll eventually become Italian cultured, which means it can unite Italy, which is what it did at the very end of the game. It's also worth noting that Nova Carthago was Orthodox. So we have an Orthodox Italy that is directly fiddled to the Greeks, who gave up colonies to the Greeks. So the way that we're actually approaching this now, I think this is something we concluded on the stream, especially now that we know that France is an absolute monarchy and they're on the warpath. They conquered the two southern neighbors here. And they're at war with Italy right now over what? Italian liberation of Venetian Emilia. So they're trying to take over Venice, but France is preventing them. They're an alliance, and I think that France would want them in their sphere. Oh, okay, well the AI maybe isn't that good, but regardless, Italy is being prevented from uniting fully by France, so we're taking this dynamic into the campaign as well. So we have France, which historically founded the Holy Roman Empire. They abandoned the title. I'm not sure what it is in lore. That was written by Dragon in Space. But now these people are going to proclaim the Holy Roman Empire in order to claim as much land off of the Netherlands and Germany as possible. Also worth noting, you see how there's no core in Calais? Well, it's actually a Dutch core here, and it's Dutch cultured. But because the French are French, I guess, they went in and took it, right? So continuing that trend, the French are going to, by World War I, the end of World War I, take all the Rhine or east of the Rhine, including the Netherlands. So the Netherlands is going to be a little rump state up here. The Palatinate is going to be gone. Germany is not going to be Germany, it's going to be Saxony. Austria might become independent with all of its cores here. And I think that because France has reclaimed the Holy Roman Empire, they're going to, because they're going to be at war with Italy and the Byzantine Empire, right? Because Italy is going to be the subject of the Byzantines, because it's like, oh, well, we own Rome, we're Orthodox, we don't want to be invaded by you, so we'll just be your vassal. So that's what we're going to have happen probably as a result after this war here. So then it becomes a matter of where's the Pope? Where's the Catholic Pope? The Catholic Pope is in France. If France is at war with Italy and they win, they restore the Pope back in Rome. Just kidding, now they're the Holy Roman Empire, so they have all this territory and it's great. But then there are a bunch of other questions that remained, like what does the colonial holdings look like in Africa? What's happening in China? It's very still here, just because of the way that Victoria II works. The nationality of Mongolia is insane. Why are there so many Mongols? We need to take advantage of this really interesting dynamic here, and a bunch of other things. So now we're at the point where I can start showing the showing the Photoshop file again. So I don't know which one I want to show first. I guess I'll show 1914. So this is what I have currently. Definitely crazy borders. Yeah, thanks. So this is what I had made so far, and I would like to shout out Comrade Mango. He made these versions of the map himself, just based off of what we were talking about in the stream. But we made it independently of each other, and I'm like, hey, you know what, maybe we should just work together. So this is the slightly adjusted one that we've made as we went along, but I'm going to be using my own method and assets because that's what I use to make my videos, and you can see the administrative map mode of our history overlaying this. So you can't really use this for making maps, but you can use it for reference. And for reference, these red lines are demilitarized zones, so that nobody can go in there. So this is what I made for 1914. I took a look at all the cultures here. Because Russia didn't end up all the way in Siberia, and there's this nation here, I thought that like Japan would support this people, and then this nation. What is this nation? This is the Khanate. This is something that we talked about. The HRE fell due to the economy crashing after a major war. Thank you. That checks out. But we don't even know what that major war is, right? It's just like the Napoleonic Wars insert without the Napoleonic Wars. Alright, well, we can work with that. But anyway, I figured that due to the fact that China's so fractured, we have a Mongolian horde uniting the Mongols again, going into China, which they hadn't in this timeline. So this is the first time it's happened. And then it's like a weird sort of fusion of Meiji Japan history and Mongolian China history, where they are like simultaneously flirting with Chinese civilization and its benefits while also trying to remain true to their horde-like aspects. So I figured that they would try to do this by expanding into Central Asia here because of how many cultural people are aligned here. Is that mega Israel? No. I'll get to that. But then what happens to the south of China? So they would all be their feudal petty lords, just like they are here. Worth noting is that Dali, Yi, and then Mong Yang. These are all like, I don't know what the actual name of these culture and these people are, but it's a culture that is sort of distinct from Han Chinese. So because of how long they've been separated, I figured let's have them merge together. So that's what this is. But then the remainder, the Han Chinese, are like, well, we don't want to be Mongolian subjects. Hey, Alistair Crowley. Didn't think I'd ever say that. the War of the Star Alliances between 1803 to 1815. Term is really kicking ass here. I think that you're a part of the team. No, I could be wrong, but anyway, so where was I? Right. I'll just go to this. Is this Mega Israel? No, it's not. This is French. Why is it French? Well, if we look to Victoria 2, you can see that there's a core of France with cultural Occitans. So this is the remnants of the Crusader states here. They might not be present in Jerusalem and stuff, but during the scramble for Africa, they would want to rival Byzantine ambitions to conquer all the Theodosian borders, which would include all of Africa, right? They're already here. They're like, hey, dude, we have a claim to Jerusalem, so let's go take it. And then also maybe the Suez and cheeky stuff too here, right? So that's what we have going on in 1914 here. So that's, well, maybe they don't have the Suez. The Byzantines would probably have the economic. Oh, I don't know. We can determine who would have the Suez. Maybe it's given to a third party to like mediate the peace because they already have like really big border friction here. Like Byzantium would just want to annex this outright all the time, right? A big Franco-Greco rivalry going on here, right? But this evolves into, when we have this going, it evolves into a bigger like Crusader state. I even gave them Antioch here so that it's like all the Crusader states. I think there was an idea, I don't remember who said it, but like they would become, like, when the Holy Roman Empire tag capitulates, this area would rename itself to Outremer and just be huge Crusader LARP, and it's like destined to fail, but like some epic Hearts of Iron 4 gamers could like make the Empire of Heaven or whatever. So yeah, there's a lot of cool gameplay things that we can do with this, but we're going to really focus hard on getting the USA sorted out, but we'll get to that. Teobald's alliance is America, Rus, Scotland, and Lorraine. Oh, that was the War of the Star Alliance. Byzantine alliance is Germany, Austria, Bergshagen, and Illyria. Really? Okay, was this in like the Victoria 2 VOD? I'll need to look at this later. I think Commander Mango just said that. You should... Yeah, you're right, yeah. You should probably push Finland to the Sphere River rather than to the Karelian provincial borders. Which river is that? Is it this river here? Yeah, that would look more aesthetically pleasing. Or are you talking about this river? A or B? Or left or right? Both? Maybe we'll just do both. Here, I want to make a note of this because I do want to update everyone else on what's going on here. Hello, people of the chat. This is the voice of freedom. I have returned. Hi. I get that reference. It's funny. Omega and Lagoda. I'm sorry. I really don't know what that is. But regardless, the border should be more like this. It would look prettier. So that's a note for me to fix that. But yeah, what else is there to talk about? The Western never eat smelly wheat. Yeah, so this thing. You're right. That looks a lot better because then they wouldn't have to go through this Arctic area. They'd have a better time moving through here. But maybe we just expand it cheekily down here. Why not, right? But yeah, I made note of that, so we'll remember to do that. Term coming in clutch again with all the really important times and dates, so thank you for that. But yeah, a change that was made in the 1936 but wasn't made here is that we have Dagestan. I really like this change personally. I also thought they added, I think it was Mango who suggested this Pontic state here, and there was Greeks up here in the save file, so now this is the Pontic thing. So it's like, I don't know who would be pushing for this specifically, but there'd be like a Straits deal, and then this would be like a guaranteed thing just to prevent every other power from getting too powerful. But yeah, so that's this. And then what happens here? So it looks a little odd having this huge bulge up in the north, right? But if we go back to Victoria 2, you'll see that the culture here is actually like very much Mongolian, right? Even though this province has 847, like we don't need to talk about that. This one has 189. This has coal, so that's cool, right? And this is Russian, Yakut, Ukrainian. Yeah, well, regardless, there's a lot of Mongols up here, so they just cut it off here. But then the Kamchadals or whatever, they would take over the rest here. They'd be like a tributary of the Mongolian Chinese Khanate, which is why they exist there. Okay, back to Lord Boy asking for mommy. So then Russia's just reduced to down this little rump state. They might get a warm water port here, like just for pity's sake. Like they need to have some sort of access. But they have the Baltic, but then the Baltic's controlled by Scandinavia, who is a rival of the Russians, because they would have joined the French faction to gain Holstein. And Holstein, according to Victoria 2, has a lot of Danes living in it. It says here 39% Danish, so that's what we're going with. In fact, it might even be that there was even more Danes there, but they got assimilated, so that's why I have this here. It would quickly change. When it comes to Poland, I had the idea of uniting Poland and Hungary, because then it would be like a really big, powerful state in between the former allies of the alliance of the Byzantines, the Germans, and the Russians. It kind of makes sense, but then like wouldn't separatist sentiment just cause them to hate each other? I'm not really sure, but there could be like a intermarium faction with the Baltics, the Polish, the Hungarians, and the Illyrians all binding together to protect themselves, and then supported by the Holy Roman Empire, and that's all well and good, right? Well, we need a World War II, so there needs to be some sort of conflict here. An idea for what the ideological conflict that I had that goes against what Tommy actually thought he would want, or said that he would want, is what if we made Germany communist? Yeah, there's a bunch of Russians in Galicia for some reason. I don't know why. I have no idea why specifically Russians there. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But further to my idea, if Germany was communist, we could do something like having there are Ukrainians in Galicia. Yes, there should be, but according to Victoria 2, look, just so that I don't get accused of Z-glazing, as you can see here, East Galicia is purely like 99% Russian here and 0% Polish and 0%. Like it's just, wait, there is that Ukrainian yellow? Yeah, 0% Ukrainian. For some reason, the converter has the Russian here, and then Poland, because of the way the converter works, the Russian's accepted, and the Protestant. That is really cursed. So anyway, yeah, that's this. Wouldn't they either keep that or just wait? Become an independent state out of Poland? Well, Poland would have won the war, so they would probably find a way to prevent that, but I can see that coming into play when we get to World War II, where it's like they want this because it's like core territory. I mean, it could even be that this is like pan-Slavic, like, you know, we own all of Poland. Hi, Nick's YouTube channel. If you unite Hungary and Poland, the Baltics cause the state to collapse and the former allies intervene, cause the HRE to join the protecting collapse state causing the war. That could work. When I meant Intermarium, I meant more like the second iteration of Pilduski's, and I probably mispronounced his name. His idea of like making an alliance rather than a federation. But yeah, that could work. I forgot what Poland would have looked like. Yeah, no, that's okay. I thought Russia owned Galicia. No, I don't think they actually ever did. Like, if we go back to the first save, I'm pretty sure that they didn't control this. There is a core for Galicia Lodomeria, so I'm going to take a look at that. This really makes me want to pull up that WW2 Scenario editor that I know I have, but I probably don't have on this computer. But it would actually help a lot with figuring this out. I definitely don't have it on this computer. So this is Galicia Lodomeria. These cores are just this. It has a little thing on Hungary. No culture, no culture. Yeah. So it's just a remnant of Victoria 2. So just don't worry about this. This is just BS. Like, if this mod was made a little more carefully, they probably would have just removed this tag. Could have a USSR like Interwar with Pilsudski socialism. Maybe. I need to look into exactly what Pilsudski socialism is, but it could be interesting. Oh yeah, and then we also discovered that there's a 64% Ashkenazi in Bratislava, and that's because of the way that the converter works. If they can't find a culture to assign a culture from EU4, they just eliminate all the pops of that culture, and then whoever has cores just migrates and assimilates it really fast. Did the Mormon Caliphate lore get approved? Yeah, so let's probably focus on that now. Sorry, I forgot I wasn't showing Victoria 2, but thankfully there wasn't really much to show. He was Democratic Socialist before he fought. Yeah, okay. I think that checks out to me. So, here's the USA. Out of these really rough notes, I put down Muslim minority regions. That these places have large Muslim minorities because the Turks that landed here to help the American Independence War are here, and the Andalusians of the former colony of Andalusian Louisiana are here. Notably, the Andalusians would have been the South, so we're considering having the Andalusians be the leaders of the Southern Rebellion. I think that was even established in Dragon in Space's lore. What Connor Osterblad had suggested is that these people in this area, especially after being persecuted either before or after the Civil War, they would need to migrate somewhere in order to not be persecuted. He suggested they go from all the way to Salt Lake City, all the way to the Pacific coast. But I think that having it be the meme of Utah always being the minority religious group of the United States is kind of funny. So I think that we're going to do that. I don't know if I'd call it a caliphate. I think that they would like really repress that. But the idea of having like a spiritual leader write a version 2 of whatever religious book was, migrate over somewhere, and then have that. So that's a really good lore here. We have the lore of the Utah state, so then we can name it something Arabic, we can name all these things Arabic, and then have lore about how they decided to become a US state, right? Is the new Israeli-Ethiopian state approved? If so, could you have them fight the breakaway? Oh, I like that. I mean, yeah, maybe. I actually really like that. I think that by default, the whole Ethiopian-Israeli state needs to be approved because, like, you really can't, like, retcon this. To prove what I mean, if you look at Ethiopia, their religion is Jewish. I'm not sure why this is, but Ethiopia is Jewish. So then, and I don't know much about Judeo-Christianity lore, but I did have, somebody was in the chat, it was Beast of Normandy. Beast of Normandy was mentioning that they could have a certain name, and they could, whatchamacallit, they would have this certain idea about how the world would be and how they needed to play the role in it due to religious ideas. That's all I can really remember. There were a lot of Jews of Ethiopia before Israel. Yeah, there were. I think it was like Beta Israel. Maybe we could call it Beta Israel. But yeah, I think it would be interesting for Ethiopia to go in and race for Egypt, so to speak, especially because of the way that we have the Photoshop document currently. I don't have it mapped yet, but we did have the Holy Roman Empire bordering Ethiopia, so it does make sense for them to go in like that, right? But as you can see here, we have a disagreement about how this would be bordered. Sweden would be on the side of France, so I think that they should keep their colony. And I think that they would get the Belgian Congo and then this little bit extra, because it's like they were the neutral power that nobody else wanted to give this region to, so they just were given it, right? So that's why I have that there. But other than that, these borders are particularly, I think, going to be what it is. In the canon, Byzantium actually colonized this, but they colonized it through the Sahara. I think that's stupid, so I'm retconning that. And then having most of the Muslim regions that have ties to Andalusia becoming like immediately protectors. It just makes a lot of sense to me. Like they are literally, their history is bound together. So that's why the Andalusians have all these territories. But back to the USA. Oh god, that was weird. Okay, back to USA lore. I wanted to figure out sort of things that we could name all these places. So if we have Utah being Arabic, hold on, this will help. We're going to look at the IRL state borders of the USA, and then we're going to impose them onto the USA. Not to say that these would be the exact borders, but I do know that it would be a lot easier to code Hearts of Iron 4 if it was. So, how do I make notes for this? I'll just maybe I'll just fill the whole state in. There, so now we know that this is a Muslim region. Maybe, hold on. Maybe give Italy a small Algerian colony? Yeah, I could see that. Especially because we would want there to be tension between Andalusia and the Byzantine sphere of influence. I thought that Tunis would be enough. But then what do we do here? Like, this is going to go to the Magna Graecia, which is like an attempt to reduce their claim to Italy. So then we could like split it down here. So I want to take another note here. So this goes to him. But no, not to him. It goes to him. Right? So then there's tensions here. It could even be like this. So something like this. But so yeah, I'm a little sidetracked because like I said, bad day. A little sidetracked on what I really want to be doing and talking about. I'm going to pull out my stream because I know that I wrote something in the description that would be important for me to read, because there's like a little notes for myself to remember for this stream. The USA's internal political lore is unestablished, and the factions of World War I a little funky. Considering how well the first stream went, I'm sure it'll do well. Thumbs it up because this is a good stream and everybody loves it. So, I know I want Utah to have a Muslim minority region. Following Mormonism, if we're doing the meme of Mormonism, what happened to the notes of this? We don't have notes for 1936? No. 1936 notes. I want probably something like this, because I'm pretty sure that's where a lot of Mormons are in America today. So Muslim. Anyway, so we know that these regions would have large Islamic minority regions. Desert borders instead of... Oh, there's a difference? I'll look this up. Deseret border. Oh my lordy. I like that a lot. Let's do that. That's so cool. I didn't know that Deseret's borders were different than Utah. I thought that Utah was just Deseret. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. We could totally do that. It's kind of a big state, and then there's also California that was technically conquered. But then again, like, it wouldn't become a state like it did in the U.S. history because of how interesting California becoming a state actually was in U.S. history. But yeah, I'll definitely consider Deseret borders for the Muslim minority in America, at least the Western Muslims. So then, like, what happens up here? What happens up here? I don't know. It's a lot of things that we need to do. Maybe we don't need to know, right? Then different, yeah. But let's talk about World War One in this hypothetical alternate history. So we have Germany, Byzantium, Italy, and Russia banding together. Why are they banding together? What does Russia gain out of it? Well, I figured that they would want Poland, and Germany would want Poland. So Poland just gets attacked on all sides. So that's an aspect of this war. Scandinavia joins against, protects Poland. France protects Poland. Britain probably doesn't have much of a reason to intervene, right? But they kind of have to. They probably would want to because there's a lot of animosity between them and the Saxons. British Columbia and Alaska would have some Spanish influence. You're right, because those were former Spanish colonies. Yeah, there's actually a couple of evidences of like our history in Vancouver. Like, there's the Spanish Banks or Spanish Beach or whatever. Like, it was because that it was the Spanish. Did you know that like the explorers of the British and the Spanish of this region loved each other so much they almost called the cities like both of their names, like a hyphenated name? Obviously that didn't really work out for them, but yeah, it's interesting to know. Anyway, yeah, there'd be a lot of Spanish influence up here, so that's really worth noting. Thanks, Term. But so we have France. Did I make a factions map? Well, I did. So this is what I was thinking the war would look like, at least for now, right? So these people against these people. Seems kind of like Germany's surrounded by all sides, so like that's a little weird, right? But then again, these people are also surrounded by all sides. When it comes to the Khanate, what do they get out of it? Well, Russia and the Khanate would be constantly at odds with each other, and they would want to fight these people, right? They want to liberate all their countrymen. Russia would want to eliminate how big this country is, just demolish it. But then what does Japan get out of this? Well, it's kind of weird that Japan and the Khanate are on the same side. But I figured that the Khanate Japan would want to take colonies. So I don't have it currently depicted here, I don't think. But there would be colonies they want to take, so they take that. But this is what I mean by it's funky. Like, I make this assertion, but I don't know if it's actually going to be accurate to what actually ends up being displayed. And then there's the matter of when does the USA join this faction and why? And who joins which faction elsewhere. So it's nice that the Byzantines are really big, powerful, and they could take out a lot of stuff. But where does Andalusia join in? I thought that Andalusia would join World War One on France's side, and that seems kind of weird because there's Catalans here, right? Well, think about it like this: the Spanish Catholics would probably want to take this and have arbitration with the French, right? And the Andalusians would kind of just want to be busy colonizing, and they were in Britain's sphere. So it could even be that, like, it's only an escalation, then the British come in and protect. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe the Baltics are with Germany, or they're like Belgium and joins Poland. By like Belgium, do you mean like they were neutral until they got invaded because of ease of conquering a neighbor? Excuse me. Not entirely sure. What do we got here? So let's think about this. Oh yeah, I had this cool idea I had was because the I don't have it depicted here right now actually. Even if the Khanate doesn't join World War One, I think that Iran would, because of the Byzantine-Iranian rivalry, which goes for like millennia. They could send Lenin over and then cause a communist state, so that's why they're big, red, and beautiful here. And then these states would be like, oh, I don't know what these states would be. They're all former Byzantine, so it's just like them trying to weaken the Byzantine too. Yeah. Japan has promised Indochina but not given it, like IRL Italy. Oh, yeah, that could work. And then, yeah, Baltics being invaded. Yeah, I think that could make sense. Could it be that Hungary doesn't join? I don't know. It feels kind of... Woo! It feels kind of like the factions in World War I are a little unbalanced. Because this is what we have here, right? But let's make a second version. It's looking more like... And it kind of like self-critique. It's like I'm just picking who becomes. I'm picking who wins based off of what I want to have happen for World War II, rather than actually just determining the lore. If Andalusia joins the war, which I thought they would do, then it's kind of one-sided. But I'm starting to think that both the Castilians and the Spanish should be neutral. Maybe when it escalates it could involve Andalusia in some form, but right now there's no much point, because if they join the Central Powers, then they're just like, yes, but I'm getting ahead of myself. We thought that it could make sense for Castile, or whatever the fuck, the Castile, to invade Andalusia and favor Germany. But then it's like, would they really do that when they're surrounded by all these naval powers? It would just have to happen before the USA joins, because when the USA joins, it's just going to dunk on them. And then I believe that we're going to have the USA taking Angola from Castile beforehand, kind of like the USA and the Spanish War. What was it? Yeah, the US-American-Spanish War, where they took sovereignty over Cuba and the Philippines and stuff. Like, that caused Spain's economy to really dwindle, and they had to be neutral in World War I. So I feel like it makes sense for Spain to also be neutral, and then all the territory they lost is like American imperialism or whatever, right? So that's what I'm thinking for that. Mango gave it to Britain. Maybe America joins Germany to balance it. Really? I mean, that's possible. But then the entire dynamic of everything would be really thrown off, unless the USA loses the war. But then that lends to like radicalism. I'm not sure. Tommy didn't do much Navy tech, so we can have their Navy being outdated. That's brilliant. Yeah, we need to... yeah, well, that's a big twist. What if we have Tommy's Victoria 2 campaign kind of like the way it was, and just have it be that they didn't really do so hot? Maybe they're more isolationist, and maybe they never joined the war. yeah, maybe that I actually maybe I prefer the never joined the war one, but if they do join the war, they could lose. Makes sense. But yeah, so as you can tell by the technologies, there's 2 Navy Tech out of 30. He was definitely focused on getting his economy up and his illiteracy up, so it's a good state, and if somebody plays it well, maybe I will. But I don't know, it kind of feels like a little weird to do that when it's Tommy's game, right? But and it would be like, oh, I'm determining it. I don't know. Well, maybe I'll keep a vote up, put a vote up on my Discord and see what you guys think. Anyway, what am I saying? Yeah, we could have the USA just not joining, but it would be so cool if they joined because of how awesome it would be to have the Turkish rebellion. Oh. Okay. I learned this recently. Theodore Roosevelt, not Franklin Delano, Theodore Roosevelt, the dude who got shot but then kept doing a speech or whatever his name was, the really rough dude. He petitioned Congress to let him go and fight World War I without the approval of the United States even joining. So like, people who wanted to volunteer could go and participate. It was rejected, but what if it wasn't, right? So then there's American division that goes overseas. This division could include many Turkish people from this region who want to liberate their countrymen, go directly against the Byzantine Empire. There isn't enough Muslim influence in the state to justify that, given look at this culture map mode. I want to reverse some of this because of like local assimilation or whatever. Like Quebec wouldn't just be immediately English, right? So there's a large presence preventing them democratically from doing it. So then we have the Turkish, maybe some Andalusians coming in and then doing a little volunteer action in this region and then going over and liberating Turkey. And it's like, that's awesome. But then this is why the USA doesn't get involved in 1936 when the Byzantines try to reconquer here. It wasn't actually the state that went in and protected them. It wasn't an official state by state alliance. It's a bunch of volunteers led by some rowdy folk who want to go in and set things right over here. And it could even be like the German conservatives don't want to fight Germany, but there are a lot of German like liberal radicals who are like, the German monarchy is stupid and they shouldn't be ruled by monarchs. So then they go over there and screw those people up. So yeah, the US could have a strong economy but a weak army and navy. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what's happening here. And then we could even play into that with the Hearts of Iron 4 focus tree. And you know, Tommy always likes making big techie things, technocratic, whatever. It could just be that he was civ greeting for 100 or 200 years, right? And then now at Hoi 4 he gets his big fantasy where he gets all of the advanced tech research facilities and stuff like that. So Nova Scotia used to be Spanish before the USA took it. It's called New Anatolia. Or I don't know my own Canadian geography. But yeah, that's interesting. I'm way tired. I'm way more tired than I thought. I might just be a 1 hour stream today, guys. I like having a weak army and navy, though I was thinking after the Civil War there was military reform. That's true. There would definitely be military reforms after the Civil War. It could even be that the Navy starts to be really focused in on after the war because maybe a foreign power was influencing them. In that regard, why wouldn't Andalusia be funding Andalusian separatists? Right? It's just like, that seems like it makes sense to me. But I don't know. The more I think about it, the more it makes sense that the USA is neutral and doesn't get involved in World War I. But I know, you know what? This was perfect. This actually fixes a plot hole that I was having that I forgot I wanted to mention. So we have the Holy Roman Empire being proclaimed, But that's like super regressive. That's like 1,000 years ago romanticism. That's only something a European would actually consider putting forward in a peace deal. From what I understand, World War I ending is unique in the sense that because the Americans and Woodrow Wilson and his 14 points were involved at the peace conference, a lot of things were done differently than they would have if it was a normal European peace deal. That's why you have things like Sykes-Picot drawing border lines in the sand that nobody cares about, but then other things like making sure that Czechoslovakia exists or other like nationalities having their own states, right? But if there was no USA involved to be a voice of reason in a world full of imperialism, then the imperialists would do whatever they wanted, like reclaiming an empire from 1,000 years ago with claims on the whole Roman Empire of 3,000 years ago. Like that's not something that a liberal American Republican would think of, right? So Democratic Republican, you know what I mean. It's not a political statement, it's a political structure statement, right? Am I right? Tommy started doing military attack during the Civil War. Yeah, that makes sense. That was sense how you do that. It's getting hot in my office. So one of the bad things that happened today, Lorcat number 2 came in and stepped on the router, which caused the internet to go out, so I had to figure that out for a long time. That wasn't fun. A lot of yapping, not a lot of mapping, am I right? But I think it's just because I'm still not really sure what to do here. This brainstorming session has been really helpful already. I'm reminded about this and Deseret being way bigger than I thought. Yeah, but what do you guys think about the volunteer idea? Because then you can have the volunteers having a big grand adventure, a Muslim themed adventure of going into Andalusia, following Northern Africa, linking up with the Crusaders is kind of weird, and then going up here and then liberating Turkey. That sounds so awesome. I really like that. What else is there to talk about? I can show you the map that Comrade Mango made. There's been talk about having Canada just be annexed by the USA. Like, it kind of makes sense in this alternate timeline because of how there isn't really much difference between the USA and Canada in this timeline. In our timeline, Canada was an administrative division of the British Empire that had self-governing authority that eventually transitioned into becoming a completely independent state, even though we're still ruled by the monarch in Britain. Anyway, that's not the case here. They're also Republican, they're also German. The only reason why in Victoria 2 they're not German is because their capital was Native American cultured, and then they became Native American culture because of the way that the Victoria 2 campaign excuse me, the E4 to Victoria 2 save converter works, where it just gives you a culture of the capital of wherever you are if it doesn't have a culture already assigned. Yeah, reverse Osmond's Landing. It could even be like Osmond's Legion. Or like there's two legions, like the Andalusian Legion and the Osmond's Legion. Yeah, I don't know, I like that. And then and then this is cool. So they're like marginalized because of the undertones of the Civil War in the South. But then they come back home as like war veteran heroes. But they could also be scorned by conservatives who are like, you killed the German monarchy. But it's like, there wouldn't be that many people who would worry about that given the fact that they fought for independence against the monarchy. So maybe scratch that. There'd be a lot of people really happy. And then it would like cause these like veterans to be really organized and influential in government. So that could be pretty cool. Maybe Canada is a mix in German and Native American. Yeah, like the Métis of Canada in our history. The Métis are like a distinct Native American group. I don't know exactly if it's like a classification of all natives that had intermarried with the French, or the Métis were a native group that specifically intermarried with the French. But yeah, there's entire cultures that are like that in Canada, so you could have them be like a Métis sort of thing, and then it makes sense why they're culturally distinct enough not to want to join the USA but still be in their sphere. Yeah, and that's really good. I really like the idea of like Latin America having the cultural divides of the Latin American regions being exacerbated by their regional cultures. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like that a lot. Good suggestion. We'll have to find a name for that though. We could call it Canada. We could give it an alternate name. I always really like the alternate name for Canada being Vesperia. So we could have it be like Vesperia, but the German word for Vesperia. So, or Vinland, but Vinland is more like Norse, Scandinavian than German. Let's not watch this. I'm not sure if that's copyrighted or not. I know that this isn't though. Anyway, what else is there to talk about? Yeah, I really like this big Yemeni Arabia. I like the idea of them racing for Jerusalem, although I feel like there wouldn't be much of a race given they're right there. I like the idea of the USA take. This also explains why, if they have them be neutral the whole time, explains why America only has this, but Spain has these. There's also talk about like making them maybe a little Liberia. I'm not sure. I don't know if I'd want Britain to have all these. I kind of prefer the way that I have these divided up right now. But also I don't want. Yeah, it doesn't really make sense to have both of these. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But then Tommy has a bad navy. How did he get a colony? Good question. Maybe the Andalusians got involved, and that's why they have decently good relations. I'm not sure. Especially if Andalusia is neutral during the war, it means that the Osman's Legion would only be active in like northeastern Africa, where Egypt is, and then therefore their front line with the Byzantines, and therefore the liberation of the Turks. So yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, a lot of yapping. I need to make note of this before I forget. It's recorded for the internet forever, but we want to have Osman's Legion, USA neutral, World War One, but have many volunteers focused on Turkish independence. What's going on with Persia? I think they're going to be communist. The idea being is that the Byzantines would want to destabilize this region, and they just send a Lenin. They deploy a Lenin figure, and then they get a big, really sweet peace deal. Maybe they have all these client states over here, but then the Byzantines fail, kind of like Germany and Brest-Litovsk, and that causes a lot of chaos in this region. A lot of chaos that this nation would take advantage of and start trying to form Arabia and push the Iranians out of Iraq, and then unite like this. Is there a war going on in Suriname? I saw that in the vids. I don't know who's fighting Suriname. Let's see. Let us see. Where's Suriname? Yes, so there are Surinamese reactionaries of the Guyana variety. But this redwoody, I think that's like English Brazilians, right? I don't know what this Balingringian is. It makes me think that this is like Norse. The cultural makeup of this region is crazy. But yeah, see, Peru and Bolivia are Quechua, but that's not what their regional, like, that's not the culture that they were in U4. So yeah, so it looks like Suriname is just facing reactionaries right now. So yeah, okay. Kokomes being an uncivilized nation this big, though, is kind of crazy. Like, Ptolemy could have just conquered these and made big colonies out of that. That's crazy. German? Balenringian? Yeah, maybe. So there's Venezuela is literally Kleinwendig. That's so cool that Venice exists and then Kleinweg. Okay, Venezuela is a Hispanification of the original name that was found by a German guy, I think, who called it Kleinwendig, Little Venice. So, yeah, so then we have this here. And then, I don't know what West Indies. These people are pretty cool. My poor Brazil. Oh, I mean, I don't know, man. This isn't really much of a Brazil. It sounds like a Brazil, but they're English, right? They're Redwoodian. I'm sorry for your loss. Brazilian and English. Belarusian is some kind of German. Okay. How can you tell? Is it just because of like the name and you just know, or what? They're just uncultured. That's a very, very high possibility. I could be extremely uncultured and we would never know, besides the fact that we would, because we're talking about it right now. Elan. So it's not even Dagestan. Oh, there's Dagestan here, but there's Alania. We could have Alania instead. I like that. So look, there's a Mongol Khanate in Mongolia, but neither of them exist. I really need to take a look at this with that scenario editor. Tartar, yeah. A lot of interesting things culture-wise. Armenians and Kurdish. There's a lot of Kurds in this timeline here. Oh yeah, so another thing I could use some help with is India. We had some discussions about it. It looks like we're going to have India be partitioned between Europeans. As you can tell, we already have some European outposts here. This is the Netherlands. This is Castile. This is the British. So they're definitely starting to encroach on here. If I had to like make a determination of how I would divide this, let's look at the stitch. No, it doesn't even have a full picture of India, but I guess I could change that. So I want to do a snipping tool. So you guys get to have a quick look at exactly the sort of painstaking things I had to do just to try to even begin this. So you copy paste something from here, you do the scale. It was nice that Tommy didn't like zoom in and out much when he was showing the map, but there were times where he did, so there's sometimes where you need to change the scale or something. But then you just keep adjusting everything around until you have exactly what you need. I wish I had a better way of doing this, but this is what we got, so we're doing it. Okay, so this is India. So we know that the Dutch and whatever are here. Let's get our pink highlighter. So we know that the Dutch are here and here. So that's why I have them like this with the borders here. But then you just expand that out. But how far did we go? We could at least have the Ocriads in a protectorate by them. And then the British having this coastal region is interesting. I want Mong Yang to go in on these people so they have a nice river, a port to the sea here. I don't think they'd be able to take out to Bengal. Bengal could be controlled by another European directly, but Britain's already here, so it makes sense for them to go here. But it doesn't really make sense to have Britain go all the way over the place. But maybe let's just do it like this. Mysore gets divided. Maybe they do this. Maybe they split the Indriads before. So this is Castile. This coastal thing could just be British. Maybe what was this? Ceylon. Ceylon would be another European, just to make things a little safer. But then who's getting all the way up to here? That's the thing. We could have them be independent, but we could also have them be not independent, and then be like a Dutch protectorate. So then the Dutch are all the way up here, and then the British are all the way up here. So it's like a three-way split of India, maybe to make it fairer. Castile gets this bit, right? But then what we're thinking is because the Dutch are going to lose the war, and this region will have united into Iran and then became communist. It could be a Turkey sort of situation where the Europeans are like, okay, we'll take this half, Britain, Spain, you get this half, or maybe not Spain, maybe another European, right? But then they're like, screw that, we're gonna become independent, and then they fight against the Europeans and win, but they only get the support from communist Iran, but they can't do it, right? So then it's just, yeah, a lot of support here. Alliance are related to Iranians. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay. That's really important to know. Maybe I would have known that if I played more Crusader Kings. Iranians are related to Iranians. It's in the name. It's just so obvious. Colombia is owned by Castile, and Suriname is an exiled Lancaster. What? That's so cool. So they're like the our Bjornians. If you know what Bjornia is, if you don't know what Bjornia is, there's this really good Victoria mod called Divergences of Darkness, and it's based off of some EU4 campaign some guy played or saw, and he like adjusted it to be, or maybe it was even EU3. But anyway, he made this mod, and they have Argentina being colonized by an exiled British, like English, because the English won the 100 Years' War and then became the dual monarchy of England and France. So all the like diehard English are in Argentina. So yeah, we could have something like that. So that's really exciting. I love that mod too. In fact, I kind of want to play a campaign of it now. But I have a Connaught to run in Crusader Kings 3. But I don't have any time for that. I have a lot of stuff to do even after this. Iranians are descendants of the Scythians and are an Iranian ethnic group. Well, that makes things a lot easier for me then. So we'll make Dagestan actually Iranian by making them Avarian, and then go from there. Cool, so we have those ideas down. We have this idea of a petition for India. Maybe I could stop yapping and get mapping. Am I right? Or am I right? Okay, so let's do a couple of map colors in before I go for the day. 180, so this selects only a state. Click, click, click. Click. Yep, looking good. And then maybe we have Kashmir owned by the other guy. I'm not sure. But we want to get the British in here too. Happy Britain, because they don't lose. It's nice that the British Empire is big in its own special way in this timeline. But how did I have it again? No. Yeah. So. I keep using Castile and Spain interchangeably when they're technically separate, but it's hard to remember. And it's just like they're the Spanish, not the Andalusians, right? It's just so obvious to do that. I think this border is even like a brush stroke and not even a real border. Does the Persians go to Delhi? They would at least support anti-imperialist revolutions there in a means to prevent European imperialism from becoming another one of their 99 problems and then getting a buffer state. Because that's how Turkey ended up being for the Soviets, right? So that's why they supported them in their revolution. But then, yeah, I don't know. There we go. Okay, and then yeah, I think I want to determine the rest of the borders off stream here. But yeah, that was a stream. Sorry if it's not as eventful as the first one. It was really awesome having everything come together so well. It's starting to get more and more to the point where I just need to lock in and write the story. I think I'm gonna be working out tomorrow morning, but it could be that I write tomorrow morning. So we're getting to the point where I'm starting to need to do the writing. So I already said that, but you get it. Might not be another stream of this, but I really appreciated every single one of your suggestions in my Discord. So if you have any other ideas and you're watching this now or in the VOD or whatever it is, it would be really great if you could consider giving some more ideas, because it really helps everything get going, because we have to make a lot of stuff up and I don't know all the history in the world. So anyway, thank you very much for tuning in. I'm really tired, but I have to go put the kids' car seats in the car and probably a lot of other things. But yeah, have a good day. Thank you very much for tuning in.